And we are live almost. Oh, hold it. I forgot one thing. There we go. Yay, we're back and we're live and well, here we are. It's no longer winter. Well, technically, it is now meteorological spring. And so, as a result, we're going to talk about the review of the winter, uh, where we were as far as the forecast and where we ended up. And of course, we're also going to go over the rainfall event that is on the way, the weather pattern through March, and the developments that we are seeing as the whole environment begins to change. So I'm going to point all this stuff out. Now, we're getting to that time of year where we start to get a drop off of people, and it's normal, right? Because like we don't have the major snowstorms anymore, so we're not going to have like the crazy individuals who are demanding 4 feet of snow. But we will still have a lot of fun. Of course, we'll talk about baseball. We'll talk about the weather. We'll talk about severe weather. One of the things I'm kind of to work on quite a bit uh, this spring and summer is have better coverage of severe weather events. I'm gonna have to figure this out because I'm not like some of these other YouTubers that basically are driven by a lot of storm chasers, where they cover every thunderstorm event. Because we're in New Jersey, right? Because there's no reason to have a live chat for or a live coverage for every thunderstorm event. But I'm going to kind of pick out the most severe events. So obviously, when there's a high potential for tornadoes, something of that nature, especially with the enhancement along the I-95 corridor. So definitely check that out and see how well we do with that. Of course, another big thing is that we also have our new live chat that's in place right now. We upgraded it this afternoon. We had some we're upgrading a lot of stuff on the website, and one of the things we wanted to work on was the live chat. So it's a little bit more stable now. So definitely, I hope you enjoy that. All the premium members. So as always, you should kind of go over how this all works. I'll put this on here and put that there. Okay, good. Um, as always, the everyone who is in the live chat area, right? They will get all their questions answered, and of course, we'll check out to see what's going on social media, and we'll have a fun evening, right? Go until about 9 o'clock. We'll see how many questions we got. We'll go from there. So first, let's talk about the winter forecast. Overall, I think the winter forecast did pretty well, but excuse me, I want to go over some of the factors that we were considering for this winter. First thing was the El Nino Southern Oscillation, the evolution of our La Nina, which generally remained weak and then gradually trended towards neutral slash week back and forth as we headed through January into February. That idea worked out pretty well in terms of the tropical forcing influence. And of course, the main thing was studying the negative AAM, which supported a retracted Pacific jet stream and enhanced the potential for high latitude blocking. That worked out pretty nicely. And the idea that the MJO would be moving more into phases that would be more influential. The MJO had an influence in terms of if it got into phase 7 and 8, things would get very interesting. If it stayed in phases three through 6, then not so much. So we definitely saw that evolution in terms of the sea surface temperature anomalies. That worked out pretty well. A very warm Pacific would lead to a situation where the southeast ridge would get displaced, and we also had pretty strong support, at least that's what I thought back in October, for a negative NAO. So that idea worked out pretty well. One thing that I thought was going to be a little bit faster was that this La Nina was going to fade a little bit faster in February. And I did say that if we saw warm anomalies in, let's say, early February, then there would be a better potential for a Miller A type storm. That's the storm that develops in the Gulf and heads up the coast. That really didn't happen. We got close to that with our blizzard, uh, but that one wasn't true Miller A. It was somewhat like a Miller B. It was a bit of a hybrid, but it wasn't a true Miller A, like a storm coming out of the Gulf and heading up the coast and everyone getting the heavy snow. But still, it was an impressive storm nonetheless. Part of that fueled by the increase in convection around the date line and over the Pacific. And of course, as you remember with that storm, everything had to line up perfectly. The ideas that we had in the Pacific and Indian Ocean and the Atlantic Ocean worked out really nice, especially the negative IOD idea, where I pointed out that, hey, we have a very strong negative IOD, which is a lot of cold water. And as a result, oh, yeah, there it is. We're already having fun in the YouTube chat, but don't test my wife. I'm warning you. I'm warning you. There you go. See? That's right. She's she's on the ball. Anyway, so the negative IOD definitely supported the idea of a lot of high latitude blocking, and that signal worked out beautifully. So this was another evolution that worked out pretty nicely. Now the cryosphere, the Siberian snowfall was pretty interesting. We learned a lot, and one of the things we learned is that perhaps, especially based on a lot of research, that perhaps the snow growth in September and in November is just as important as what happens in October. And that seems to be showing up more and more. And it's very interesting study in terms of what we thought was the most important thing, which would be the snow growth in October. But we're gaining more and more support here based on observations that, hey, if you see a lot of snow growth in early November as well, that could be a sign of a disrupted weak polar vortex. Boy, did that work out with the polar vortex becoming very weak in late November, right around Thanksgiving, and become disrupted and setting up our very cold weather pattern for early December, as you guys all remember. The lack of Arctic sea ice, again, enhanced the potential for a negative Arctic oscillation and negative Arctic oscillation. So those ideas worked out pretty well in the scheme of things based on the observations. Now, the QBO being an easterly phase, this is really important because as a result of the easterly QBO, what that gave us was a better idea of the potential for sustained high latitude blocking. This is going to be important for next winter too, because we're heading towards a westerly QBO. What does that mean? Well, the QBO doesn't mean that you're guaranteed blocking. What it tells you is that if blocking is sustained in an easterly phase, it's more likely to remain sustained. That it gets locked in, and you could stay in a weather pattern for much longer, like let's say mid-December to mid-January, right? But when you have a westerly QBO, you have a lot more volatility, so it goes back and forth. As a result, I see that someone's having a lot of fun. Um, some people just have no lives. I don't know. Anyway, when you have a westerly QBO, that means that your high latitude blocking is more likely to break down. Now, that doesn't mean that you're guaranteed to have a warm winter or a cold winter. It just means you kind of have to be more on the ball in terms of watching the evolution of the weather pattern as you go forward. So that's something to consider for next fall and winter. And again, you can see the evolution of the warm polar vortex here. That worked out pretty well in terms of a warm stratosphere. And then this was the overall forecast that was expected in terms of our 500 millibar pattern. As you can see, we had a sustained negative EPO idea. That worked out pretty well, especially with the ridge on the west coast here. Your broad trough over the east, your displaced southeast ridge, your positive TNH pattern. That worked out beautifully. And you ended up with a nice negative NAO to set up the blocking, leading to a lot of storms that were not necessarily always blockbuster storms, but we had a lot of the 1 to 3, 3 to 6 inch, 4 to 8 inch type snowfalls around the region that allowed for a lot of buildup. Now, one of the things I said about this weather pattern is that one or two major winter storms will make or break this winter. And that's essentially what happened. We had one in late January and the other one in late February. And they accounted for a large amount of the snow and sleet that occurred throughout the region because of those storms. Without them, you would have ended up with pretty close to what was expected in the forecast, but overall, um, that factor is really what kicked this winter into high gear. So this is a very important lesson here. A winter can be made or broken by just having one major winter storm. And that's something to always remember when we're talking about, hey, are we going to see a lot of major, are we going to see a really bad winter? You have to understand that that type of situation is really, really, really rare. And it didn't happen this year, right? It happened with just one or two storms. So whenever anyone brings up 95, 96, and we have it every fall, right? Um, that's a once in 200 year type winter. It's extremely rare, and you shouldn't try to expect it. What we had this past winter was going to be in one of our top echelons of winters that we've experienced over the past 20 years. Will we see the same thing next year? Probably not. Okay. But that's something that, that doesn't mean we won't have an active winter next year, but we won't have anything that's similar to what we had this past year based on the evolution. So things that could go wrong in the forecast. The snow growth in Siberia slows down, stalls. That didn't happen. Polar vortex is disrupted but focused towards Asia. That didn't happen. La Nina is stronger than forecasted. That didn't happen, but it did last a little bit longer than I thought. Or a major volcanic eruption, which thankfully did not happen. So these were the storm tracks that were expected, and this generally did play out. We had a lot of clippers. We had a few storms cutting up towards the Great Lakes where we reloaded a pattern, and we had a lot of storms that went into the Tennessee River Valley and then redeveloped off the Mid-Atlantic coast. That pretty much is what was expected and what actually occurred. And in terms of the expected snowfalls, again, we had zone 4, 3, 2, and 1, 1 being the lowest. We were looking at the very least, 5 to 10 inches in zone 1, 10 to 20 inches in zone 2, 20 to 40 inches in zone 3, and 40 to 80 inches in zone 4. So where did we end up with that? Again, these are the zones. And then here is the actual snowfall. And that worked out beautifully to a T, where we had a lot of locations going over that 10-inch mark down here. A lot of locations down here around 10 to 20, going a little bit above that. A lot of locations in that 20 to 40 range. Some locations going just above that. And then you had your 40, 80 range, which worked out very nicely. So overall, I would say the winter forecast, giving a seasonal forecast to get your snowfall totals generally within the expected snowfall amounts. Whoops, excuse me. Or mm, good coffee. Or at the very least, get them in the ballpark where people can accurately expect the winter. Worked out really nicely. This is one of the better seasonal forecasts I had. Hopefully, I can keep on reproducing that for next year. And of course, then we had the spring forecast. So definitely, premium members check that out. That is already out. So overall, I would say the winter forecast was a success. So what about going forward? Well, this spring is going to be dominated by the evolution of our El Nino, excuse me, that is starting to develop. We're not there yet. We're going to be a couple of months before we actually get a true El Nino environment established. But what we can expect with a developing El Nino is that eventually the SOI will continue to trend towards neutral and then start to feature more and more negative anomalies. That's probably off in June or July. But the main thing that you'll notice is more and more, if I could load this, and there it is, more and more convection starting to show up in this region here. Again, we're not there yet, but what will happen is you see this feature up here? That's part of the subtropical jet stream. What you'll notice going forward is that the subtropical jet stream will become more and more moisture loaded. And you can see that very nicely on the water vapor satellite picture. Just look at this streaming all the way from the Pacific right into the desert Southwest. We have another robust system within the subtropical jet stream. The polar jet stream's up here. And again, you can see that here in our upper level winds, The subtropical jet stream getting stronger and more active. You can see another branch down here. This is going to be very important as we move towards the spring and towards the summer for hurricane season, because this means we're going to see more shear. We're also going to see more systems with a lot of tropical moisture coming in from the Pacific and marching across the country. So I'm expecting a lot more severe weather down towards the southern plains, towards the Mississippi River Valley, Tennessee River Valley, and eventually towards our neck of the woods, especially once we get towards the summer. The El Nino type pattern has some influence on the polar jet stream as well, especially in the warm months, where warm season months, spring and summer, where we could expect more of a trough over the eastern United States. And yeah, most likely a lot of weeks where we don't have heat waves. But that doesn't mean we won't have humidity, because I do expect with the trough axis somewhere around here, we're going to be dealing with a lot of southwesterly flows and a lot of humid but stormy conditions. So it's going to be a very interesting summer in that respect. So we're seeing a lot of changes taking place in there. And of course, we're seeing some changes going on in the stratosphere. One of the things that's going to be a big news, and one of the premium members already mentioned this, is that we're going to see changes in the sun. We're already seeing it for the first time in years. We finally had a blank sun. 3 days of no sunspots. You might be wondering, well, who the hell cares about that? Okay, so let me explain this to you. When we don't have sunspots, okay, we reduce the ability in the ionosphere and the stratosphere to break down and knock down ozone. Now, ozone is very good in the stratosphere and in the ionosphere. Protects us, right? The ozone layer, right? If you have too much ozone, all right, it leads to a generally colder environment. But when you I'm sorry, when you break down the ozone, it leads to a colder environment. But when you start to allow the ozone to build up, what happens is that you start to create an overall warm stratospheric environment. And what this means as we move through the summer and towards the winter is that while the stratosphere itself can have cold and warm phases, the base of the stratosphere, right, tends to end up being warmer. We saw this in 2009, 2010. We saw this in 2011. We saw this back in 2016 and 2020, 2018. What were all these winters like? They were all active. Why were they all active? And why did they feature weaker polar vortexes? Because the stratosphere overall was warmer regardless of the QBO effect. So this is interesting to see an environment where we're finally seeing a reduction in the sunspots on the sun. This is not, I know a lot of people try to connect sunspots to individual storms. That's not how the atmosphere works. It's not a one-to-one ratio. This is a lag of not weeks, but months and years. Okay. So when someone says, oh, the sunspots are very active, therefore earthquakes and storms and all that nonsense, that's nonsense. It's complete and total garbage. Okay. The way that the solar weather works for us, aside from, arroyos and all that stuff, is that the less sunspots you have, the more that ozone can build up in the atmosphere, and the warmer your stratospheric environment will be. So this is something that's very interesting that we're going to be watching very, very carefully. Now, while that's all happening, we're still dealing with a weak polar vortex, and this is going to be an issue for our spring months, especially for March and early April. Um, if you're looking for sustained warmth, I got some bad news for you. Okay. The weak polar vortex is going to allow for some cold air to drop in towards the United States, and especially towards the eastern 2/3 of the United States. This does not mean winter storms. I want to be very, very clear about this. I know some individuals are running around saying, oh, we're going to go back to winter in late March. It'll be a bit of a whiplash. I guarantee that. But understand, by the time we get to late March, you need 850 millibar temperatures sustained at -6 or lower, um, it's really hard to pull that stuff off. Can it happen? Yes. That's why I'm telling you not to put away your winter coat. But in my opinion, what we'll be seeing is a pattern where we'll see a return, especially with the MJO heading back towards phase 6. Let me hold that up. You can see this right here heading back towards phase 6 and 7. And if we pull up the European, you see it goes back into phase 7 and 8. Very weak MJO. But what this does is it allows you to align to have a trough over the eastern United States. So you combine this factor with the MJO, and what you end up with after we have a very nice toasty warm pattern, aside from Long Island, sorry guys, the Atlantic is going to keep you guys a bit cool. But everyone else, especially around Philadelphia, southeastern Pennsylvania, southwestern New Jersey, you guys are going to warm up beautifully this weekend and early next week. But we will shift back to a colder weather pattern. But I want to make it very, very clear. This is not a winter storm pattern. Okay. What this is that we fall back below normal, but below normal by this time. And let me pull up this. This is the European ensembles. What is below normal? Well, according to the European, when we get out to that point, we're in the 40s, right? And just to kind of match this up, here's the anomaly forecast. So you can see we trend below normal. And everyone's going to share this type of map, right? You're going to see this all over the place. Oh, major cold coming, major cold coming. Okay. What does this really mean? Well, major cold is really 40s, lower 40s, 30s as you head off towards the interior. But why is the anomalies not the same? Because our average by the time we get to late March is closer to 50 degrees. So it's not the same thing, understand? So I want to make this very, very, very clear, right? That your snow maps, and someone's already mentioned snow maps, your snow maps that everyone likes to use um, are really a bad idea in March. Well, they're a bad idea all the time, but let me explain why. The snow maps are based on, most of them are based on an algorithm where you take the QPF, that's the amount of moisture you put out, and then whether or not is it at freezing or below, or is it above freezing at 850. So if you have it at -2 degrees Celsius and you have moisture, then snow, right? But we all know that's not the case because by late March, -2 degrees Celsius at 850, it's 45 degrees, not snow, right? Certainly not snow accumulation. You might have some snow in the air. So that's why those snow maps at 15 days out or 10 days out, or really anything beyond 4 days out, are complete trash, right? Because you're not even dealing with an environment where it's the dead of winter and where 0 degrees Celsius equals freezing at the surface. Now you're dealing with 0 degrees Celsius means mid 40s at the surface because we have a higher sun angle. And if you want to go and take a look at the anomalies and then compare it to what the surface temperatures are, understand what those cold anomalies are, which we'll see right here, right? That's where we see our cold anomalies on the map. They'll post the map, but they won't post the surface temperatures because the surface temperatures are 40s and 50s. You see what I'm saying? So this is why it's very important to understand what we're talking about in terms of a chilly end of March and possibly a stormy end of March. Most likely it's going to be a wet, cold, stormy end of March, not snowy. Does that mean we rule out winter storms completely? Absolutely not. If you're over the interior, especially like let's say northwestern New Jersey, the Poconos, northeastern Pennsylvania, Poconos, Catskills, Hudson Highlands, up towards New England, Green White Mountains, absolutely there's a threat there. Absolutely. I'm not saying that there isn't. What I'm saying is that if you're on the I-95 corridor and you know who you are, and expecting heavy snowfall, you're going to be disappointed. What you're going to get is 44 and rain, regardless if it's well below normal. Okay. So I just wanted to make that very clear in this environment that yes, we'll see a chilly second half of March. There's no doubt about that based on the way that the MJO is lining up, and the polar vortex is still kind of waning and starting to fall apart in its influence as the whole stratosphere as a whole starts to moderate in, and you lose your thermal gradient. So that's clear, but you're going to lose the true Arctic air because the sun angle's higher, and these air masses moderate much faster. And again, I will get to all of the social media. I see a lot of great questions, so I'll definitely bounce around. Just want to cover our storm currently right now. Hey, we're all above freezing. Everything's melting. Yay. Watch out for some fog, though. That is for sure. When you got melting snowpack and warmer air, definitely a lot of fog around the region. So if you're traveling later on tonight, you definitely want to be prepared for that. There is our stationary boundary here, and here is our next storm. Take a look at the infrared satellite picture. You can see the cloud top starting to build, but the water vapor satellite picture, this looks pretty cool. This is our shortwave here, and this is going to march along and ride right along the stationary boundary. And while that stationary boundary is wavering over our region and kind of messing with our temperatures here, you're going to get this slug of moisture right here just drive right into the region tomorrow evening on through Friday morning. Now, if you're in northern Connecticut, the higher elevations of the Poconos and Catskills, please be aware that there is a potential here for freezing rain with this. Okay, it's going to be isolated, but it's a concern. So if you're above 2,000 feet in the Poconos and Catskills, or if you're in northern Connecticut, Friday morning is going to be a bit icy. Okay, so definitely be prepared for that. Everyone else, this is rain. But that is also a threat here because, well, all the snow that's melting, plus the rainfall, about half an inch to an inch and a half, is going to lead to some small stream flooding and some urban flooding and major ponding on the roadways. And you had a lot of oil on the roadways, and you have a lot of salt and just a lot of gunk on the roadways. So hydroplaning on Friday morning is a threat. So just be careful for the morning rush hour. That is going to be a bit nasty. So let's walk through some of the model data here. Again, this is not a strong storm, but it's vigorous enough to drive plenty of moisture into the atmosphere, into the region. And then after that, you can see our ridge building over the southeast. Now, this is happening because the MJO is currently phase 5 and 6, which supports in the subtropical jet stream a trough in the west and a ridge in the east. Meanwhile, the polar jet stream's kind of taking a break and it's shifted northward, so it's not a major factor here. So that's why we're seeing what we're seeing until we start to get in alignment with the MJO and the polar vortex influences, where we start to see more of a trough in the east. In terms of lifting here we have at 850 millibars. Pretty strong lifting here coming in Thursday evening, tomorrow evening into Friday morning as that shortwave drops through. And the precipitable water values are pretty impressive as well. We're looking at about a half an inch or inch and a half of precipitable water value. What that means is that you have a good potential here for some moderate to heavy rainfall with this system. So it's going to wash away all that salt and all that stuff. In terms of 850 millibar temperatures, hey, we are warm in this scenario. There is literally no threat here of any type of frozen precipitation outside of freezing rain. And as I was saying, with that freezing rain potential, few spots to keep an eye on Friday morning. Let me zoom in here. You can see here northern Connecticut, a little concern about that. Down towards the Poconos and Catskills, you can see right there, small areas, 32 degrees, right at 32 degrees on Friday morning. So be prepared for that. Okay, it's going to be a bit icy in those few locations. Everyone else, 37 in rain. It's going to feel raw. ugly, you're going to need a coat, or just stay indoors, get yourself some hot coffee. But this is going to be a bit of a raw morning, that is for sure. And so the way that lines up for the next 90 hours, there's our rainfall coming in. Again, there's a little bit of that freezing drizzle we're talking about. Okay, more showers coming in. Again, there's a little bit more of that freezing drizzle that we were talking about right along the stationary boundary. And then for this weekend, it's a little unsettled, but not too bad overall. We're talking about temperatures in the 50s and 60s, a few showers here and there, a few showers on Sunday morning. Sunday afternoon looks to be dry. So Saturday is going to be a little hit and miss. Sunday completely dry. Either way you slice it, very warm temperatures. And then we're talking about temperatures pushing up possibly into the 70s. But again, don't put away your winter coat. Just put it in the closet. Enjoy the warm weather while you can, because the chilly conditions are on the way back. So with that, let me go take a look at the latest details here. And someone's having an issue. No, the video's right. I don't know, card's having an issue for some reason on the video feed. It's fine here. I'm taking a look at it. Okay, not sure. Uh, do we have much questions here? Here we are. Okay, let me scroll back a little bit. Okay. What's that? Oh, okay. Yeah, I'll definitely check that out. Are El Nino summers usually cooler? Are El Nino summers more humid than La Nina summers? Um, El Nino summers can be more humid and can be cool. Typically, during La Nina summers, you have a building southeast ridge, and you can get that ridge built right over you. And that's where we tend to have some of our more impressive heat waves. That doesn't mean that an El Nino year cannot feature a heat wave, but most El Nino years feature something like where it's 88 degrees, so not officially a heat wave because it has to be 90 or higher for 3 days, right? So it's 88 degrees, but the humidity is so high that it feels like 92 perpetually. And you can't get any relief because you're constantly sweating. Along with that, your thunderstorms are capable of producing some very, very heavy rain and flooding. So I think those two things are going to be a major theme. Um, we're going to have to watch out for sea breeze fronts creating a lot of havoc. And one of the things that's going to be a major story is the influence of the I-95 corridor and thunderstorms this summer. And watch out for around Newark and down towards the southern suburbs, southwestern and western suburbs of Philadelphia for major flooding events and severe weather events. We'll keep an eye on that, but I think that's going to be an issue. I saw the 10 to 14 day from the NWS. They say New York City would be near normal. Does that mean there is a chance for snow? Snow? Then or near no. Okay. So let me put it to you this way. Near normal in 14 days is 50s. It's 50 degrees. So the idea of near normal is way above freezing. So is still above freezing. Yeah, it's going to be above freezing all the way until we get back to December. Okay. We're beyond the normal winter phases of where normal can support snowfall. Now normal supports rain, unless you're in, again, the Poconos, Catskills, New England, northern New England, Green and White Mountains. That's a different story. But for the I-95 corridor in New York City, normal in March is upper 40s to mid 50s with rain. So, yeah, I mean, in a 10 to 14 day, again, that's 10 to 14 days from now. That's March 14th through March 20th. That's generally not your winter storm season type of time period. Hi, Steve. Yesterday's system, we had 3.5 inches of snow in North Adams, extreme northwestern Massachusetts, and a mix would change the sleep before tapering off. I'm kind of surprised that some people older don't properly identify sleet and call it hail. Oh yeah, that's been a thing for years. Um, they can look the same, okay, in terms of if you have really really small hail and it pings. So why do people get confused with that? Well, they both think because they're ice balls that they're both hail. Hail is produced by a different process where a water droplet is caught in an updraft in a thunderstorm and keeps on getting caught in an updraft, building up ice as it's rising until it's too heavy and it falls, right? Whereas sleet is nothing more than a snowflake that falls from the cloud. It melts and then refreezes and continues to fall. There's no updraft involved. So they're two different, completely different processes, but some people can get confused with them, especially if they've never experienced a hailstorm in the plains. Because I guarantee you, anyone that's been in the plains would definitely know the difference between a hailstorm and a sleet storm. I can guarantee that because you don't lose your car with a sleet storm unless you're driving. I'm confused. Mount Holly has us in the 70s on Tuesday and Wednesday. It's possible. If we get a southwesterly wind, then yeah. But I warn you that if we actually get to 70 degrees on the Jersey Shore, don't be surprised if we get our first sea breeze. Because we have a lot of cold water off the coast, right? As you know, and that's cold, dense water. And if we actually get that warmth of 70 degrees, that rising air is going to invite that colder air in. And if the southwesterly wind on Tuesday is weak enough, below 10 miles per hour, I would not be surprised if we see that. Now, on Wednesday, the winds are actually going to definitely be stronger than 10 miles per hour, possibly 10 to 15 miles per hour. So that factor will be overwhelmed, and most likely your best shot of seeing 70 degrees would be on Wednesday rather than on Tuesday. Dun, 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 dun. Okay. Huh, that's strange because it's showing the video. I'm not sure why they're seeing. Huh, that is very, very weird. On the live chat, let me just check something right here in the premium section here. I just want to see one quick thing. Yeah, everything's here. Hold it. Okay, let's see here. Do you expect Union County area to hit upper 60s to 70s on warm days the next week or two? I think it's a good possibility. I think it's a very much a very good possibility of seeing that. I'm not sure what's happened there. I don't know. I refreshed it on my page. It's loading just fine. Let's see here. Live chat for February. I wonder. Oh, I see what happened. I know exactly what happened. Give me 1 second. You know what? I'm going to fix this right now because I know what happened and I could fix it. And this is why it's awesome to know about websites and stuff. Because sometimes you have to fix things on the fly. And okay, refresh. Bam. I bet you that's what happened. Probably when we were updating the website, it didn't load properly. It loaded fine on my page, but see, that's the wonderful thing about knowing how to fix things on here. Yeah, there we go. There we go. Ha ha. Wonderful. It's good to learn things, right? Right. Yes, yes, but now we fixed it. All right, so we checked out everything in the live chat. Let's go check a look at social media. We'll first hit Twitch here. We'll do YouTube in a minute. Well, let me just hit Philly weather here. What's your thoughts on next winter? That's funny. Now, do you think you could post links to any papers you read, find fascinating to your website? Maybe only be I would like to read up on those. Absolutely. I mean, I do that a lot on my X feed as well. But yeah, I'll definitely be able to share that when I come across them. When you showed the snow total map, There were a spot in central New Jersey that said 103 inches. What's going on there? Hang on, let me go back and check that out. Hmm. I think someone made a typo there. That's gotta be a typo. That's got because I mean, if you look at the rest of the region, I would just take the rest of the region in 30s and 40-inch range, and 103. I think someone got a little bit too aggressive there. Um, so yeah, that's most likely a typing error right there. Let's see here. Do you answer? Did you answer my comment before? There are only four sunspots. Yeah, we definitely card. We definitely talked about the sunspot situation. It is pretty weak. It is definitely trending weak. We will see a blank sun eventually. I think this year, a sustained blank sun, not just 3 days. We already had that for the first time in about 2 years. Let me just check out YouTube here. What do we have here? Uh, yeah, I saw you've been busy. Oh, geez. Some people just, some people need to have a hobby, and it's not to be a jerk, right? Yeah. Uh, okay. Let's see. You did a great job. The winter, you're one of my favorite meteorologists. Thank you. Still showing people on X showing 300-hour snowfall totals. Yeah, unfortunately, some people just don't learn. Kind of sad to see winter is over already. I mean, it is March, guys. It is March. My wife would disagree with you. That's all what I'll say. But it is March. It's March. It's time for spring training baseball. You know. Good evening. Looks like we are getting to the time of year where steady soaking rains begin to impact our severe thunderstorm prospects for later spring via boundary layer moisturing. Oh, absolutely. That's going to be something that's going to be a big deal um, on the way. Okay, in terms of how much rainfall we get and what the boundary layers are going to look like in terms of mesoscale boundary layers. For some of you that are new, um, one of the factors that influences severe weather is where we have um, those dry zones and moist zones, right? And those themselves, those boundaries themselves, can enhance and weaken thunderstorm complexes as well. So it's something that we watch very carefully as we move on through the spring, and it becomes more of an issue as we head towards the summer. How does a moderate El Nino typically affect our severe thunderstorm probabilities through the summer? I know these kinds of summers tend to be wetter due to a stronger subtropical jet stream influence. A moderate El Nino can lead to more dynamic short waves. It has a more significant effect, in my opinion, in the plains and in the Mississippi River Valley. But if you get the right interaction with the polar jet stream, it could really, really amplify some impressive storms for the Mid Atlantic. But I think that's directed more towards the southern Mid Atlantic. But again, we could see some impressive storms this year. I do think so, unfortunately. March of 1888 was a big blizzard in New York City. April of 1982 was a good one. March of 93 also. I think March of 2003. Yeah. Let's see here. We had a big storm in March, April of 1982 in Queens. We got 10 inches. Yeah, I mean, there's definitely been examples of spring snowfalls, many of Easter's or opening day of baseball, right? Where we had snowfall, snowstorms. Understand, first of all, the March of 1888 was under the influence of a supervolcano that went off, and basically one of the years that they considered the year without a summer. So just putting that out there. A lot of the storms that you mentioned happened more in early March. Of course, we had the April storm, which was a situation where, and this could totally happen. I'm not saying it can't, but what you had was a upper level low rapidly intensify. And when you have an upper level low rapidly intensify over you, you have a lot of rising motion. And a lot of this rising motion started to take place that night into the morning hours. So that allowed for rapid cooling. You had no sun angle influence, so you were able to build up a snowpack to start off like 2, 3 inches. And then because of the intensification of the storm, it basically developed its own cold air mass because of that rising motion, which kind of fed back on itself. Understand that type of storm, like the April of 1982 storm where they got 10 inches, that feedback process is very difficult to pull off. Can it happen? Yes. I could also win the lottery. It doesn't mean it's going to happen all the time. So, can it happen? Yes, but be skeptical if you start seeing it in the model guidance. Put it with a heavy grain of salt because it's something where everything has to come together just right. Oh, what do we got on Facebook here? Will it be cold? Oh boy, will it be cold middle to end month starting April in Hudson Valley, New York? Okay, interesting. We got to work on sentence and structure. And look, believe me, guys, I am no grammar person. Yeah, I'm no grammar person because I think I probably caused my English teacher to retire early. That's how bad I butcher the English language. But sometimes I got to pause for a second. Um, be cold middle end month and starting April in Hudson Valley, New York, Hudson River Valley. Okay. Think there will be more snowstorms. What are with you guys with snowstorms? It can't be, you guys can't be teenagers, right? No. Because, yeah, will cold come back? They're not, I'm telling you right now, they're not in their 40s. I can guarantee you that because my back feels it every time. Here's the thing, right? You guys are kind of looking for the golden goose here. Okay. Let's be really honest here. Okay. Understand below normal by the middle of March gives you 40s. In order to pull off 30s, we're going to have to be about 20 to 30 degrees below normal. Can it happen? Sure. Do I have any data to support that? No. As far as snow accumulations, I would say if you are in the highest elevations, you could possibly pull off over a 2-inch amount at some point. Okay. Um, and yeah, I'm sure people love snow, but guys, it's March. It's time for leprechauns. Yes, it's time for leprechauns. But no, more importantly, um, I'm just trying to be realistic. I'm not telling you that snow is bad. I'm just giving you a realistic expectation that again, well below normal. Let me show you this again. All right. So again, these anomalies that are showing up here. Oh, hold it. Right here, right? Where we are here. See this? Minus 10 to 12, right? That means that gives you 40s. 40s. Does that mean that you can't? I'm not saying you can't. I'm just saying it's extremely hard to pull off. And we want snowstorms because the world sucks. So snow makes everything stop and be magical for a few hours. That is true. That's true. But, yeah. Roofs cave in. Yeah. Let's see. When do you see consistent 70s? Let's see here. The answer to come. Let's see. Only way someone got 107 inches in Union County is if they're making their own snow machine like Snow Boss. 1982 also had 2 years of Mount St. Helens eruption. That's true. When do you see consistent 60s and 70s? Probably May. Well, we fixed the chat issue, Bill. 1816 was the year without a summer after 1815 Mount. Yeah, exactly. We had a super volcano get let loose. Um, I could see everyone is trying to pull off, the one year where we had, a storm sleet storms, stuff like that. Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying that that can't happen. I'm just saying that again, you're kind of listing a lot of the events that are historic for a reason, right? Let's see, what else do we have here? I'm gonna mess with you and your Mets all season because I'm worried the Phillies aren't going to do that well. Um, I would say I'm not gonna bash the Phillies. I'm just very curious about their offseason. God forbid. I mean, the Mets offseason was pretty curious too, but we'll see how it plays out. Here's the thing about baseball. We all think like, oh, well, this free agent's going to do well, and this pitcher. It usually baseball seasons comes down to the unknown, right? Where that the the young player that you didn't think was actually going to be good ends up being great and being like the difference in your team. So you never know. Same thing with pitchers. Um, how cold will get late March in Bridgewater, New Jersey? Uh, well, again, like we were talking beforehand, probably if we actually verified the cold weather pattern, which again is another thing too, this could back off as we get closer. But let's just say that there is a 20-degree anomaly. You're talking about 40s, 40s, and not exactly warm, but not exactly Arctic cold. So look, guys, we have to adjust our expectations here because we're not in December and January. We have to adjust. Mid to late March, sun angle is like early to mid September. Now, in October, we've had snow events, right? So when things align just perfectly, you had a snow event, right? That doesn't mean it happens all the time or that you could expect it to happen, So how about being a Boston fan, watching other teams pay big money for free agents while Boston's ownership spends money like Liverpool FC? I'm assuming that FC is not very good. What is that? Soccer? I think it's soccer. Um, I would say I'm not sure exactly what Boston's trying to do, to be honest with you. So I'm sure that there are a lot of examples that many people can pull off. Hey, Steven, you mentioned you anticipated severe weather events from Newark and south of I-95 corridor. Would the cooler waters in Long Island Sound and Gulf of Maine moderate the severe events in northeast New Jersey and southeast New York? If they occur in March and early May, sure, but I don't think that's going to be too much of a concern. By the time we get to our severe weather season, which really takes off late May, June, and July, and sometimes August, that will not be as much of a factor anymore. Okay. But the water temperatures on average do enhance sea breeze fronts, which can ignite other thunderstorms and whatnot. No more 32-degree nighttime lows. I wouldn't say that completely, especially over the interior. Jeff, I would say that the frequency will steadily be decreasing. And in fact, here, let me just go you back just to give you an idea here. This right here is our average temperature, right? So 35 is about here. Now, as we get to late March, the average gets you to about 35 for a low, okay, on average, right? So we could still, with just near normal temperature regime, still have mornings where we're below freezing or around freezing. I wouldn't really expect that until we get to, as far as like just being average and staying above freezing, until we get towards the very end of the month and in early April. But that's a good question. Why are you drinking coffee this late in the day? Because I am insane. Yeah, exactly. So I can stay awake during the live chat. Exactly. Normally, I honestly, okay, so I'm very much like my uncle, right? Where we both have this issue where apparently we handle the caffeine very, very easily. So a cup of coffee at night does nothing to me. I still fall. How many times have I drank I've drank espresso and I've passed out sleeping? Not an issue. I drink no caffeine, can't sleep. Yeah, you can't sleep, and I sleep without any issue at all. I just go right out. Not even a concern. They won the Premier League, Europe's top league last year. They did. Okay, good. I mean, did they get a big trophy for that? What's that? Yes, I'm gonna have to ask Alex. He would know because he's from that world. Um, yeah, they call. All I know is that if I ever went to Europe and I called it soccer, I might get beat up. So I try not to. Not to bust your chops, but our plant is very old. What really is normal? Our planet is really old. Okay, we have 160 years of records. Yes, but as far as the records we do, well, actually, it's more than 160. It's more like 200 and over 200 years worth of records. Um, but yes, the Earth is very old. That is definitely true. But what we have for an average is pretty damn good in terms of judging what is typically normal and what isn't. Now, the idea of average is actually really unusual, like to just hit the average number because it's literally what it is. It's an average, right? So normally you're a little slightly above or slightly below, but it gives you a good range of where we typically are. So I think it's pretty trustworthy. Dodgers own Chelsea FC in Premier League. They probably own a bank too. What I think they print their own money. Dodgers. It'd be a real shame if the Dodgers had an injury bug this year, wouldn't it? Just saying. Just saying. You know, things happen. Someone pitches at the WBC, hurts their leg or something. I don't know. Well, it is almost 9 o'clock. I'm happy to see. Yeah, we'll just check to see. It looks like we're good on Twitch. Let's see here. We answered everything on YouTube. We got everything on X. And of course, we got everything on live chat. Good first session on the new live chat that we have in place. I figured out what happened with the video. When we upgraded everything, it reverted back to the older video, and I had to change out the new video, which I did very, very quickly because sometimes you have to do things on the fly. That's okay. But I think we could close the books on the winter of 2025-26. No, that does not mean that I'm saying there's no chance we can get snow going forward. So calm down, guys. I'm just saying if you're on the I-95 corridor, I, I think you could put away the shovel. Not the de-icer though. I'd keep the salt. I keep that present. Keep that. I'd keep your heavy coat. Um, Yeah, all of our stuff is still out. We keep that out until April 1st. Because you're definitely going to need that. But overall, the right. So about April or so, right? Yeah. Yeah, so yeah, about early April usually. So yeah, I mean, I think we had a great live chat. Awesome questions at all. The internet stayed up for cards, so that is awesome. And we fixed the website looking great. We have more upgrades on the way on the website, so look forward to that. And of course, as we go forward with our live chat, we'll be watching a lot of stuff moving forward this spring. We're going to be covering the evolution of whether or not we are finally breaking our drought that has been in place for basically years at this point, how that's going to influence severe weather, the potential for flooding. I think that's going to be a big story as we head through the spring, as we see our El Nino develop and the subtropical jet stream strengthen. We will most likely see people continue to try to search for winter storms and unfortunately get disappointed. Look, keep your expectations low, okay? So this is what I suggest for all you guys looking for snowfall. Don't look for 1 to 3, 3 to 6, 6 to 12. Try 1 inch. Go with 1 inch and then go from there. Uh-oh. Um, let's see. Oh, yeah, I already get that one. Okay, so that's good. All right, so I think we'll call it a night now, and that is pretty much about it. So thank you for joining, and as always, stay safe out there.